Great pleasure right now to welcome to our show today a woman who has really conquered a bunch of fields out there. You know her as one of the producers of the great television show Bones. She is a best-selling author of novels, mystery novels. She has a new one out. It's called Flesh and Bones. We're joined by Kathy Reichs today by telephone. How are you, Kathy?
I'm good, thank you.
Congratulations, first of all, on the previous book that made it to the top of the bestseller list. I mean, you have a new one coming out, I believe, as we record. It comes out today, Flesh and Bones. So you're a busy lady.
I am. I actually have two books coming out. I also have my first young adult book coming out in paperback. That one's called Viral.
Oh, great.
Nancy Brennan's 14-year-old great niece, Tori Brennan, and her friends solving cold cases with forensic science.
Is it
something for everybody?
Is it different to write for a young adult audience? What do you do differently in that? Maybe use less jargon, or what's the difference?
Well, the book is equally complex. The plotting is equally complex as any Temperance Brennan book. It's actually the Virals is thicker than Flesh and Bones. It's just that your main characters are younger. And so their social concerns are younger. The dialogue is a bit different, but otherwise it's very similar. A lot of adults are reading the young adult books.
Now, that's really a hot market nowadays. I mean, people may have thought, kids don't read anymore, but put something good out there. Kids will read it, right?
Well, hopefully get them excited about science.
And, of course, you're a forensic anthropologist. I've heard of forensic science, but forensic anthropologist, I guess that means you go back and kind of combine both disciplines there, right? Digging up artifacts, is that the difference?
Well, it's bones. It's bones. Mm-hmm. Only instead of looking at ancient bones like an archaeologist might do, we look at modern bones that come through a coroner medical examiner office to try to solve modern crimes. Or not everything I look at is criminal activity. Sometimes an elderly person, for example, might wander into the woods and disappear, and 2 years later a skeleton is found. Mm. But the difference is we're working on modern materials for legal reasons.
I remember watching the show growing up, I guess back in the 70s, Quincy. Remember Jack Klugman was a forensic pathologist.
Exactly.
Did he inspire you? That show inspire you at all in your studies of becoming this?
Well, I used to watch it. It's funny, that show was on, and it did well, and it kind of disappeared, but you didn't have this massive wave of interest in forensics that we've seen over the last few years. I don't know if my books and our show Bones have contributed to that, but there certainly is interest today.
Well, it is CSI, and I guess all the criminal shows now are going to that route. Of course, Bones is as well. But I think people are fascinated what you can find out from, I guess, the smallest bit of evidence out there. It is fascinating, isn't it?
Exactly. Bones will be going into our 7th season this fall, so there's some staying power out there.
Well, now,
and of course, this is the 14th Temperance Brennan book. And I think they're in something like 34 languages, so there's a global appeal to the character at least, and I think the science as well.
Can you talk a little about the main character, in case some folks may not be or new to your books, Temperance Brennan, obviously based on yourself, I would think, but a lot of you in that character?
Yeah, professionally, certainly. She works in North Carolina, where I live, and she works in Montreal, where I work. She works in a medical legal lab, working on the dismembered, the decomposed, the burned, the mutilated, the skeletal, figuring out, perhaps cause of death, figuring out perhaps identity. She gets a little more involved in the books and also on the show, where she's somewhat younger. I think of the TV show as a prequel to the books, because the character's a little bit younger, so it's an earlier point in her life. And she gets a little more involved with the investigative end of it, going with the detective, interviewing witnesses, etc. I don't do nearly as much of that. I don't do any of that, actually.
Now, this one takes place at a NASCAR race. NASCAR, of course, very popular sport. Somebody dies around the track, and then that's where the fun begins, right?
Yeah, they find a body in a barrel of asphalt in a landfill adjacent to the Charlotte Motor Speedway during race week when 200,000 fans are pouring into town. So Tempe has to collect the barrel and get the body out of the barrel and figure out who it is.
How do you go? I like asking authors of novels, what's your process for plotting out your story? Do you write an outline, or how do you go about it?
I write a very detailed outline. I'm writing the young adult books with my son. We collaborate. So we do a very detailed outline. I don't do that so much for the Temperance Brennan books. I know where they're starting. I know the setting. I know which science I will use to drive the solution, because they're good old-fashioned murder mysteries. It's just they're science-driven. And I know where it's going to end, but I don't do the same kind of detailed outline that I do for the young adult books.
Do occasionally your story, does it sometimes go a different way as you maybe halfway into it than you think originally, and they say, well, this will be better,
well,
the characters kind of take in a different route? I heard some authors say that happens.
Right, but really you're in control. You're in control of your characters. Mm-hmm. You're the one that can hit the delete button.
Sure.
But as I write either series of books, I'm constantly researching, and as I'm researching, I'm learning new things. So sometimes I do throw in a twist that I hadn't thought of previously. I do have usually an A story and a B story and a C story going, just like a Bones episode. And sometimes I'll play around with how those intertwine with each other.
You talk a little bit about working on a television show. What exactly is your role as a producer? Are you involved in the writing of it, or more of the research of it?
I work mainly with the writers. We have a staff of full-time writers who are wonderful. We have now had something like 120 episodes. So we have to keep coming up with, how do you mutilate a body? How do you get somebody murdered? You know, we've put them in a chocolate barn, we've put them in a wood chipper, and we've put them in, all kinds of bizarre situations. And what bone clues? These are the kinds of questions the writers will ask me as they develop the script. What kind of bone clue? What would I put in the skeleton to show this victim was stabbed by a pickle fork? And then they write the script, and then I read every script, and I give them feedback from science.
And you make sure that it is scientifically correct. I know there is some, poetic license in television, but you make sure it's pretty scientifically accurate.
Yeah, and we don't use any technology that doesn't really exist. We don't use any techniques that are unrealistic. You're not going to get DNA in 22 minutes, that kind of thing.
Right. I guess some people do kind of figure in real life something could be solved in whatever it is, 46 minutes, but it isn't always like that in real life.
Yeah, and that everything is solved, and that's not actually the case in real life.
Yeah. Of course, you like you mentioned before, you do it you've done it for the FBI. You teach at a couple of different places. I guess you teach up in Quebec, don't you, as well?
I do all of the forensic anthropology for the main crime and medical legal lab in Quebec. That's located in Montreal.
Right.
I'm not actively teaching right now. I've been on sabbatical for quite a few years.
Yeah, well,
there's only so much time.
Yeah, you're very busy with the writing, television, and all that. And the latest book, Flesh and Bones, is the name of it. We've been talking with Kathy Reichs. And Kathy, really appreciate you taking a few minutes. Do you have a website people can get a hold of the book and maybe ask you a question?
I'm on Twitter. I'm trying to get more Twitter followers, so it's Kathy Reichs if anyone wants to follow my tweets. And I'm on Facebook. Again, it's Kathy Reichs. And then I have two websites. One is kathyreichs.com, and the other is viralstheseries.com. And that's for the kids. It's very interactive.
Great. And it's Reichs, just for those folks.
Kathyreichs.
Great. Kathy, appreciate you taking a few minutes. Enjoy your work, and hopefully we can talk to you again when the next book comes out.
Thanks a lot.